Good evening. Welcome to the Almont School Board of Education special meeting on Wednesday, June 25th of 2025. The meeting will begin at 6:01 p.m. And if you could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Burrow, would you do roll call, please?
Absolutely. Ms. Rotarius?
Here.
Mr. Wade? Here. Mr. Eckert? Here. Ms. Fred?
Here.
Mr. Burns?
Here.
Mr. Burrow? Here. Ms. Smith?
Here.
We have all 7 members.
Thank you, Mr. Burrow. Adoption of agenda. Any additions?
No.
Any deletion?
No.
Thank you, Mrs. Von Hillmeyer. New business, finance.
We're going to start with the approval of additional track repairs. And I'm going to read the fact sheet here. So when the purchase of and contract for single items of supplies, materials, or equipment exceeds the amount designated by statute, the district shall obtain competitive bids, policy 6320. As the track repair resurfacing project is underway, additional required repairs have been found that require board approval prior to proceeding. The district will oversee these repairs in-house as a way to cut additional costs. For the removal of asphalt and compacting base and excavating, adding base to areas identified during proof roll, pricing from 3 companies were received. Donley Excavating at $22,900. They were unable to give a start date. Midwest Commercial Construction, $21,215. A couple of days to get out to start on the repairs. In Yard Services, $17,550. There's a range there to $17,800. Price variation depends on asphalt depths for repairs on the east side. They can start at the end of next week. And just to be clear, the recommendation is Yard Services Incorporated with the lowest bid.
Mrs. Smith.
Mr. Wade.
I move the Board of Education approve the additional track repairs to be done by Yard Services Incorporated.
Support.
Motion and support. Any discussion?
Mrs. Smith.
Mr. Wade.
When the asphalt company came back out and they marked, we had some work done in the interim, and there are some additional areas that may need to be taken care of that were not identified by the asphalt company, because they could be the drainage at the north end. There are some other areas that collapsed, so that would be addressed by at the same time. And since it was Yard Services that did the drainage, then those areas need to be identified and patched as well.
Okay.
And I am abstaining from this vote.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Mrs. Smith, do you know the reason for the kind of root cause of why all that collapsed? If we rebuild it, will it collapse again?
I do have Mr. Frederick here, so just if I could please invite him to conversation quickly, Mr. Frederick.
Yeah, I would have to get up and walk the track again. I've been off using vacation time. If what you're referring to is due to the excessive amount of rain that we've had in the last week, some settling of the ground, then absolutely. But I'll put eyes on it, and whatever it is, they'll make it right.
Do we know, sorry, my question was, do we know why they collapsed?
I would have to look
keep,
at it and see.
Okay, I don't want to keep, like, if you keep throwing good money after bad, you try to keep fixing. At some point, we have to figure it out and stop. Understand why it's happening.
Well, these areas here to be addressed that were discovered during the proof roll, they would be different from the other jobs that they just recently did that haven't been paid for yet. So we would have to re-explore them to look at it as a job not finished for whatever reason, whether it was settling from where they had trenched. I would have to look at it and see.
Mrs. Smith?
Mr. Burrow.
I just want to comment for the public that wasn't able to hear. Mr. Wagan brought this up as not a board member, but as a track coach as well, that there might be areas when we took off that we're not in good enough shape. And Star Track had said in our committee meeting that he didn't think that that was possible because he had walked the track. So I just want to reflect how important it is to make sure we involve all parties to have our budget. Now, because Mr. Wade brought it up from his experience, this isn't a surprise that we have to pay a little bit more to get this. We knew this might be coming, so just so that everyone in the public is aware of that. I think it was right around 260, but we were expecting it to be a little bit more than that. So,
Any other discussion?
Mrs. Smith, so what is the dollar amount then that we're gonna be looking at? Do we not know?
It's separated out, Ms. Frederickson, so it's in 3 parts here. We wanted to separate each of these out, so we have yard services for one. We have another recommendation for the paving, or the Ace Paving Company, and we just separated out the dumpsters. I saw them as like 3 parts. And
Okay.
just for the discussion purposes to, separate these out and be specific of what the board is approving.
So yard services then is how much of that?
Yard services, the range was 17,550 through 17,800. And that is the recommendation, is it's the lowest bid.
Correct, but we have now also just heard that there's probably gonna be more, so that's gonna be something really that's open. The paving then was how much?
The paving is being recommended for this scope of work, 33,416.
And the dumpster?
The unforeseen dumpster issue is $9,000 to $10,000 range.
So I guess my question is, and Mr. Wade, I think you probably, with Mr. Frederick, have the most knowledge base. Before we make a vote on anything, should we be finding out a little bit more about what direction we're going in with this? What is the problem? Because again, we don't want to be spending good money after bad. Whatever needs to be done, we want to get it done, and we want to get it done correctly. So is that something that we should be waiting on until we have, who would it be, Mr. Wade, that we would bring in, or Mr. Frederick, who would we bring in to find out more information on this?
I haven't walked the track since we had the torrential downpours, so I would have to put eyes to see what it is being discussed that was the washout, because if it was new drain and trenching that was just done, then there's the potential that area had settled.
Right.
So, that track has been stripped since before June 11th, and we've had a lot of other rain, and we've not had any catastrophic washout or anything like that. So I would like to put eyes on it. Hearing it now is the first time that I've heard it. Like I said, I've been going most of the week, so.
So again, are we trying to move forward with this, or should we allow Mr. Frederick to have the time to go out there and get a more appropriate analysis to bring to us to move forward? And
I think one concern I would have, I don't want to delay the project, right?
Right.
We want to keep it going.
If we run into another hurdle, it's going to be delayed again, right? Yeah, so I would almost rather, similar to what Sue was saying, can we put some eyes on it before we get to yet again another hurdle?
Mr. Burrow.
I just think in lieu of the scheduling, it's critical that we do this today in order to have the track opened and not working during the school year when football's trying to it's critical. And regardless of what Mr. Frederick walks and sees, we're going to have to pay it because we're 78%, 95% into the project. So if it's another $5,000 to $10,000, we can't stop at this point, right? So
correct.
So, I mean, like, I trust Mr. Frederick enough that he's gonna walk out there, he's gonna see it, he's gonna make sure that, you know, he gets the best bid for the process. But I think that we're so far into it now that we have to finish it, regardless of whether it's the $60,000 here or $70,000 for the couple extra areas that Mr. Wade is letting Mr. Frederick know about today.
Mrs. Smith, I agree with Mr. Burrow. Like, we know for a fact that these areas have to get done, so let's get it started.
Mr. Ferguson, after when you get a chance to walk the track and get these parts going, you'll know relatively quickly if there's additional.
As long as I can get out of here while the sun's still shining, I'll put I
Okay, so what do you think about it?
So absolutely. You know, June 11th, we had a 36,000-pound vehicle do laps around that track. And we earmarked those areas. So I would, you know, my gut feeling is that we're talking about earth that was disturbed and has settled. I could walk out there, it could be something else. But when we get done here, I will walk out and then I will immediately be in conversation with Ms. Meyer to give my assessment of this is where we're at. But, you know, going along with what Mr. Burrow said, we're far enough down the hole now that we gotta keep rolling.
Well, and we want it done correctly, bottom
Yes.
line, we want it done correctly. I don't want yard services getting out there and expecting to pay for some work that they're doing that isn't going to fix the problem. So whatever needs to be done, I'm certainly on board with. I just don't want us to having to pay yard services for more work if what they're doing isn't gonna help us.
So I think what I'm hearing then is we, vote on this, these projects, keep it moving. Mr. Frederickson will do.
That's Mr. Frederick and Ms. Frederick.
I'm mixing the name together. We'll do his due diligence to look out there. Ms. Vaughn, if you could provide an update to us maybe tomorrow afternoon or
As soon as I
Friday
find out.
morning.
Yeah.
As soon as you find out. And then obviously if any of that, if yard services needs to wait, to add on additional stuff, I trust that you guys will coordinate that appropriately. Any other discussion?
Listen, it sounds like you guys knew this was a potential issue, is that this could come up. The concern is getting nickel and dime to the point where you're either more expensive than the other quotes that we have, or way more than we anticipated. So the hope would be that we get everything settled now.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Moving on, when the purchase of and contract for single items of supplies, materials, or equipment exceeds the amount designated by statute, the district shall obtain competitive bids, policy 6320. The district hired Star Trek to oversee the track project to ensure quality and accountability throughout the process. After reviewing the current condition and needs of the site, Star Trek is recommending A. Saginaw Paving Company to complete the removal of the remaining asphalt. This recommendation comes as part of the continued effort to prepare the area for the next phase of the project. The district appreciates Star Trek's expertise and ongoing guidance in managing this important facility improvement. The cost is $33,416. This will replace the asphalt that was removed during the preceding scope of the work. This will be done after other repairs are completed.
Mrs. Smith,
Mr. Wade,
I move the Board of Education approve Ace Saginaw Paving Company to complete this phase of the track project.
Support.
motion and support. Any discussion?
Mrs. Smith,
Mr. Wade,
I will abstain from this vote as well.
thank you. Any other discussion? Motion and support on the floor. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried.
When the purchase of and contract for single items of supplies, materials, or equipment exceeds the amount designated by statute, the district shall obtain competitive bids, policy 6320. Due to the unforeseen additional layers on the track, Star Trek had to use 14 dumpsters compared to the originally quoted for price for work. This has caused a price increase of $9,000 to $10,000. Star Trek is only charging Almont the cost for the additional dumpsters and not the extra cost of labor.
Mrs. Smith,
Mr. Wade?
I move the Board of Education approve the additional price increase of $9,000 to $10,000 of dumpsters needed to clear the track.
Support?
Motion and support. Any discussion?
Mrs. Smith.
Mr. Wade?
Two parts. One, I will abstaining from this vote as well. Second, I'm hard to believe why it's said to be unforeseen for additional layers on the track. I prepared a sample RFP and I provided a track history, and it was in there. And if we had a meeting to walk the track with all these companies, it would have been, having everybody there, it would have been discussed that there is still 2 layers of running track material on the track. So that would have helped with the price quote from the beginning.
Mrs. Smith, can I invite Mr. Frederickson, or Mr. My word, Mr. Frederick, Jason, to the conversation. Mr. Frederick, can you speak to that, please, regarding the walk of the track? I just want to make sure everyone has the information.
All I can say is the track was walked by every vendor. We were looking like chickens trying to find scratch out in the dirt. We were kicking at it, we were moving it. Everybody laid eyes on it. It wasn't until after the second week of them being on site removing that someone had said, hey, there's they call it resolite. It's a surface that was used. At the time it was, when we walked the track, it wasn't discovered, or it wasn't noticed.
Any other discussion?
Mrs. Smith?
Mr. Burrow?
I just want to make sure that our due diligence was done here. In our building and site committee meeting, I'm going to go by name, it was Rick, I believe, that came from Star Trek. He sat across the table from me and he said, hey, I walked it, when Mr. Wade brought this specific thing up, and Rick said, hey, I walked the track myself and I can guarantee that what I'm quoting is the correct number. So I just want to make sure as a district, we have done our due diligence to try to recover this money, because he said that in a public meeting. I don't know if that's recoverable or not. I know that he said he was willing to cover the labor of it and just not the dumpster, so I know we're reading halfway or
I
whatnot.
think that was the compromise.
I agree, yeah. He sat across that table and said, hey, the number's a good number, I walked it myself. So just making sure that we've got everything we can here. Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nick?
Motion carries. Mr. Burrow, make sure to request one nay vote, please.
Yep.
Moving on. This goes to budget approval. The Board of Education must approve a school budget by July 1st of the fiscal year pursuant to state law. The Uniform Budgeting Act requires that an appropriation for the general operating fund of the school district be approved by the Board of Education. Number 1, a preliminary tentative budget has been developed by the school administration for the 2025-2026 school year. Number 2, revenue is based upon a per pupil foundation allowance of $10,000 and 1,346 students. Number 3, expenditures were developed utilizing a zero-based approach that has become the norm for us. The approach helps us to be more accurate in many ways. Still, a number of factors, state aid bill, for example, enrollment, utilities, health cap, MIPSER's rates, inflation impact, etc., are subject to change. Number 4, the budget has been reviewed by board members at the May 27th special meeting and June 17th work session and June 23rd budget meeting. Number 5, a budget hearing was held at 6 p.m. on June 23rd, 2025, at which time public discussion input could be received. Revisions were made to the proposed budget, and the follow-up special meeting was held at 6 p.m. on June 25th, 2025. 6, the budget can be revised at any time during the course of the fiscal year. 7, total general fund revenues are projected to be $17,846,800. Number 8, total general fund expenditures are projected to be $17,846,800. Number 9, the general fund balance at the end of the school year is projected to be $3,877,820.
Mrs. Smith?
Mr. Burrow.
I move the Board of Education adopt the 2025-2026 general fund budget. Revenues $17,846,800. Expenditures $17,846,800 as presented, a copy of which is to be marked and attached to the official minutes of this meeting.
Support.
Motion and support. Any discussion?
Yes, if I could invite Mrs. Merrifield to the discussion. Just wanted to go over the changes we have done on here on the projector for you. We'd like to go through a couple of these documents. Thank you, Mrs. Merrifield.
Thank you. Just wanted to start with noting that we are in the revision of this proposed budget. We are adding back in the assistant coaches with gross wages at $64,152.13. The following items on this, listed on this page, we did add back these adjustments. To make that happen, we removed the teacher appreciation line items for each building and admin. We removed our staff lunch, which is the end of year lunch, and the back to school breakfast. We adjusted the technology budget, furniture and software license. We tried to do our best to get closer to the actual amounts as fiscal year 25. And then we went through the workshops and conference line items for each category, the special ed, improvement of instruction, administration, and athletics, and adjusted those amounts closer to actual from fiscal year 25. We then present to you the proposed budget for this year. The revenues still equal the expenses, so there's no change to the total. Just all the different line items, the basic programs, added needs, athletic, so that you'll see those changes there. And we just wanted to demonstrate to you the assistant coaches being added back into the expense portion of the budget, and shifting around some of those new programs and bringing other workshops and conferences closer to actual.
Any other discussion? Mr. Upton.
Mrs. Smith, on the sheet, what line items were over budgeted last year that are brought more in line this year, and what ones were not ever used last year?
So these items represent actually the budgeted items from fiscal year 25, but as we evaluated the actual amounts, they came in much less than what was budgeted last year. So we felt comfortable in adjusting, instead of copy and paste last year's budget into this year. We noted that these departments did not use these amounts, so essentially they didn't use it, so now that they're going to lose it, but they were being adjusted.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I would just also like to reference, so depending obviously where our numbers fall, if our budget ends up more favorable, we do have in front of you, we do have the recommended, prioritization for reinstating the budget items. So, and those are listed, of course, for your review. To say that they're not, I don't want to say ever, right, that these items are not important. Of course they're important, but this is how we were able to reprioritize and get to where we're at right now.
Yeah, you cut the extra.
That's right.
Do you have that on a slide to show or no? This stuff, no?
The priorities, well, it's actually listed on the spreadsheet. Kathy, we did do that. I just did this so that you could use it as a easy reference, but we did on that spreadsheet, they are all ranked 1 to 9.
I think it's on the.
It's on the bottom of that spreadsheet that Kathy just showed you. I'm sorry, the changes. I think, Kathy, right, maybe in the column, I think if you left it. Those are all in ranked order.
It's not maybe not, it's a PDF in the same form.
I know where it's at. I was in one of our public ones,
Yeah.
so that everybody would see it, to be transparent.
And actually, I can share, if you stop sharing,
Yes,
Kathy, I can
okay.
share mine.
Thank
It's right
I
here.
certainly can do that too. Okay, yeah, it's right here, so either way, we both have it. So if you stop sharing, Kathy, I can go through mine.
Sorry, I always try to find that. There we go.
Be able to disconnect, Kathy? You're still on.
No, I'm sorry. I can't find it.
Is Colin maybe? Is Colin right there?
Yes.
Colin, can you help Kathy disconnect? I have to log on, thanks, Colin.
It's just like,
There was an update to my computer and it's different.
Technology.
Thank you, I appreciate you.
So Ms. Vaughn, and you're thinking,
I just put that on. So if we are able to, again, if our budget comes in more favorable, I just wanted to rank these as far as, in consideration of how this would, what this would look like. So, of course, we're always looking at our people, and if there's a demonstrated need for additional student support and programming, I would like to bring our part-time teacher to full-time status as the first recommendation to the board. The second one, depending on where we're at in pending results from staff feedback and or a technology survey that was discussed with the board previously, would like to potentially survey the staff to see where we're at, to look at what that Chromebook replacement would look like. So maybe it wouldn't be that we would need it for all grade levels, for example, at the elementary. Maybe there's a grade level in the middle school that we wouldn't have to replenish right away. So I'd want to do kind of a needs assessment before we would go ahead and jump there, because that is a significant savings there if we did not embark on that next year. Of course, I never want to cut out, workshops, conferences for our staff. I'm a huge believer, and I think most of you know at the table, huge into school improvement. So definitely would want to put my eyes back on that. I'm sorry, I skipped one. Number 3 was the special education conferences. So I started there for our special ed group because we do have some newer teachers. I want to make sure that they, again, are getting the support that they need for their program. So that was number 3. Number 4, again, technology budget, because we did take a chunk out of technology, and along with the Chromebooks, of course, not replenishing them, I definitely would want to review our needs, and I would be doing that with our building administrators, our staff, to see what hardware or software needs we would, need to consider. And then, of course, there are workshops, whether it is admin, athletic, workshops. I'd want to start building those in, probably depending on request, need, newness of staff, that kind of a rank order. But I'd be inviting our staff and administrators to the table to make those decisions if our budget ends up being more favorable. And then towards the bottom, again, I know that I was challenged with teacher staff appreciation, knowing that is something we don't have to have. It's just, I'll be honest with you, we talk about Almont being, part of a lot of traditions. I would tell you that it's tradition to have a welcome back breakfast and an end of the year luncheon for our staff. I don't care about gift cards or little, door prizes. It's really about valuing and recognizing our staff as a whole. So I would really like to bring that back, if we could. It's just a way to, again, I guess, set the tone, kick off the school year, but also end on a good note too. So I'm hoping that if there's enough funds, that can be a consideration. I will also share with you, maybe Lapeer County Community Foundation is listening out there, or, excuse me, Fort County, but I might be reaching out for a grant as well. As I've shared with the board, I'd like to take our staff as the kickoff to Camp Skyline. It's something that we also used to do as a tradition to get the staff off of school grounds if possible, and that's been a retreat area for our staff in the past. So I'd like to revisit that and bring it back. So it could be through grant. If things are favorable, I would ask the board and the staff to reconsider that. And then of course last, because we have a little bit of a surplus, I would put paper supply orders at the bottom. And sometimes I love our teachers. I was going to tell you right now, if I ransacked through the middle school or the Orchard Primary, I might be able to recover a few reams of paper. So it's just who they are, and it's not a slam on them. They just want to make sure they have their materials throughout the year. So my point is we just be resourceful. And we also at the district office, actually Mrs. Merrifield brought this up, that there was quite a bit of supply for us in our central office. We had a surplus, so we certainly can share our paper supply across the district. But we did see where we could cut some out at this time and be confident that we're going to be okay. So those would be the recommendations at this time. Another area that is not listed that we might have to entertain if numbers come back favorable, just wanted to put it on the board's radar. This budget includes one-way busing for athletics. So just because of the feedback that we did receive, depending on the sport, the team, maybe the location. I know I had a brief conversation with Mr. Wade for like our Croslex, when we go to Croslex or Algonac, those might be trickier for our parents to always travel to. So again, if our budget is favorable, we might have to have a discussion about bringing back some of that busing for athletics across the board. So whether it's track or football or volleyball, basketball, if we're further away and we have the funds, we may have to take a look at that. But it might be also worth the conversation that the more local ones, like Inlay City, Armada, maybe it is that we really consider that savings. So it's maybe not a bad thing. We have to take a look at this. It might help us in the long run decide what's going to be more like fiscally responsible. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Any other discussion?
Excuse me,
Mr. Acker?
Can you speak to what happened to the teacher, the rehiring of the teacher that left? Is that part of this? Is that?
So the only recommendation for staff reduction at this time would be the elective teacher going from full-time to part-time. And that's because there is less interest in an elective area. So that's the cut that I felt would be appropriate. That's right. So as far as the ELA teacher, I think specifically, we have built that into this zero-based budget. So we would be posting for an ELA teacher. If it's
Any other discussion? I would like to say thank you to all that worked on the budget, including this board. I know it has been a process, and I think that everybody took it very seriously, so I really want to thank all of you. This is a very important job, and this is our biggest task, so thank you for everybody that put time into this. Any other discussion?
Mrs. Smith,
Mr. Burke?
can I just confirm one thing with this bond? One-way busing to sports, but all the school of choice student busing is still in place.
yes, we didn't touch it. Not at this time.
Mrs. Smith?
Mr. Burrow?
Resolution for adoption by the Board of Education of Almont Community Schools, General Appropriation Resolution. Resolved that this resolution shall be the general appropriation of Almont Community Schools for the 2025-2026 fiscal year, a resolution to make appropriations to provide for the expenditure of the appropriations and to provide for the disposition of all revenues received by Almont Community Schools. Be it further resolved that the total revenues and unappropriated fund balance estimated to be available for appropriation in the general fund of the school district for fiscal year 2025-2026, which includes 18 mills of ad valorem taxes to be levied on non-homestead and non-qualified agricultural property to be used for the operating purposes as follows. Revenue, 1XX local, $1,817,336. 3XX state, $15,255,294. 4XX federal, $561,162. 5XX to 6XX other financing sources, $213,008. Total revenue, $17,846,800. Total audited fund balance, July 1st to appropriate, $3,877,820. Total available to appropriate, $21,724,620. Be it further resolved that $21,724,447 of the total available to appropriate in the general fund is hereby appropriated in the amounts and for the purposes set forth below. Expenditures, 1XX instruction, 11X basic, $8,694,351. 12X added needs, $2,387,766. 2XX support, 21X pupil support, $664,732. 22X instructional staff support, $195,375. 23X general administration, $410,654. 24X school administration, $1,271,242. 25X business services, $428,240. 26X operations and maintenance, $1,734,256. 27X transportation, $1,034,535. 28X other central support, $423,957. 29X athletics, $465,216. 3XX community services, $75,977. 4XX to 6XX other financing services, $60,500. Total appropriated $17,846,800. Further resolved that no Board of Education member or employee of the school district shall expend any funds or obligate the expenditure of any funds except pursuant to appropriations made by the Board of Education and in keeping with the budgetary policy statement heretofore adopted by the Board. Changes in the amount appropriated by the Board shall require Board approval of the Board. Be it further resolved that for the purposes of meeting emergency needs of the school district, transfers of appropriations may be made upon the written authorization of the superintendent, but no other transfer shall be made without prior approval of the Board of Education. When the superintendent makes a transfer of appropriations as permitted by this resolution, such transfer shall be presented to the Board of Education at its next regularly scheduled meeting in the form of an appropriation amendment, which amendment shall be adopted by the Board of Education at such meeting. We're going to do a roll call vote. Ms. Rotarius?
Aye.
Mr. Wade?
Aye.
Ms. Fred?
Aye.
Mr. Eckert?
Aye.
Mr. Burrow? Aye. Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Mrs. Smith?
Aye.
You have a 7-0 vote, Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
We're moving on to contract approvals. The Board of Education approves the employment contracts of all personnel. The secretaries at the buildings have an association, and as such, the association bargains their contract. The attached contract and all changes have been discussed with the board at previous meetings. The proposed 2-year contract is competitive and appropriate. Recommended by committee 3-0.
Mrs. Smith?
Mrs. Rotarian?
I move the Board of Education approve the attached secretarial contract, which will be marked and attached to the official minutes of this meeting.
Support?
Motion and support. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to non-rep contracts, the Board of Education approves the employment contracts of all personnel. We have many members that are not part of any collective bargaining agreements and thus have individual contracts with the Board of Education for duties to which they are assigned. The recommended compensation package has been discussed, reviewed with the board. Any changes have been discussed with the Board of Education.
Mrs. Smith,
Mr. Ray.
I move the Board of Education approve the compensation package of the non-represented individual as discussed.
Support.
Motion and support. Any discussion?
Mrs. Smith,
Ms. Fred.
is this the same one that you were talking about the other day on Monday that has been tabled?
Just like the secretarial contract, so this one was going to be brought.
The
there are-
secretarial one was not tabled.
No.
This one was.
It was tabled, yes, it was.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So is this
They were
the same
both, so
contract?
upon the approval of the budget.
Is this the same document then that we looked at on Monday?
No, so what I did was, because I didn't feel like there was going to be support for the non-rep booklet, and with the longevity costs, I wanted to go back to the original contracts for the non-reps. On that note, I don't want any surprises. I feel like there has to be a little bit more discussion on 4 employees. I'm recommending that we move forward with the non-rep contracts at the 5% increase at this time. And the 4 employees that I would like for the board to have some special consideration, I would like to bring that discussion to the board during the work session. In the event that there is an increase for these 4 employees, I would recommend that they would receive retro pay from the July 1st start date of the new contract. So I don't want to surprise board members. I feel like there has to be a little bit more discussion with the special considerations. So that would be the outlier from the other day. And there was concern about longevity costs. So I want to have a further discussion with the board. But I would want to make sure that the board understands and knows that the non-rep contracts expire June 30th.
So, Mrs. Smith,
Ms. Fred.
it seems to me that even on Monday, we had a discussion that board members should not have surprises at the table, and that we should have at least one full business day to review documents before decisions were made. And I know I had a busy day today. The first time I had a chance to see the new documents were after 2 o'clock, but I didn't have an opportunity to go through all of this. And at this point in time, I can't vote on something that we haven't really had good discussion on. I think that, again, this should be tabled, just this. I would like to see us find a way to, because I understand the contract ends on the 30th and the new one begins on July 1st. After we've had discussion that there is a bonus that is offered, if that's legal, to meet the need of that extra time that was missed in a paycheck, or if that's not legal, that it's a bonus that we do some retroactive pay. And that way it would give us time in our next board meeting to look at this and discuss it in further detail. So I guess I make a motion to table this until that time.
I'll support.
Motion to table the non-rep contracts until the future board meeting in July, and there is support. Is there any discussion on that?
So Ms. Vaughn, from what I understand, we are changing what I have in front of me to a 5% across the board.
5%, right, like the 5%, or as noted, there's a couple that are a little bit under, but with their additional stipends, if you will.
Correct.
They stay within that amount.
Okay, is that reflected in the motion that we have? in front of us that Mr. Wade offered and Mr. Burns supported, because the document I have is different than this motion.
Okay, so,
I want to make sure that everything is in proper order for this.
Good call, Mr. Burns.
yeah, so for this specific document, no, so that's why I believe I'm making the recommendation that it's the
Okay.
5%
Okay.
if it was going to be approved
Actually, I
tonight.
think there's three motions on the table, right? There's three
Well,
ideas on the table.
There's
Yeah,
three
don't
ideas, but we
wanna-
only have two motions.
Right, three
So
ideas.
Mr. Wade motioned for the original. She's now recommending that we're going to change it, so we would need a new
We
motion
would need a new motion
if we wanted to vote for that.
recommendation.
I'm recommending the 5%
Okay.
across the board
Okay.
tonight, and then I wanted to bring more discussion, because the 5% has always been there, even Monday was the 5%. But I wanted to make sure that there was more discussion due to the longevity costs and then the 4 special considerations.
Okay.
And I did not want to surprise the board, I wanted to be able to show due diligence to recognize all of our units and our employees.
Mrs. Smith?
Mr. Burns?
I guess my feeling is like, I don't, if there's more to discuss, there's more to discuss, but I don't really feel like we should penalize these employees by not getting their contracts renewed for the beginning of the month. You know, we can do the 5% and, you know, have further discussion. That's what I feel.
Mrs. Smith?
Mr. Burrow?
I want to say that I agree with everything Ms. Fred has stated with timing and whatnot. I feel similar to Mr. Burns, where we've got employees that have been to meetings on Monday, some might be out here now, that are expecting their contracts to be renewed. We've already voted to approve the budget that includes it. So I feel like that, with that on the table, that we should consider that as well.
This is on the budget, does that include at the 5% or at what was, in the original?
Just in the event that it was approved,
Yeah.
the 4 considerations were built in.
Mrs. Smith, are the 4 considerations the ones that are 10 and 11%?
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. And that was another reason why I provided, just for the full content, you know, the full context, the salary comparisons, just to show, and I know that Mr. Wade and I believe Ms. Frederiksen wanted to see those salary comparisons, so wanted to make sure that you had that actually in front of you. I printed it up, just so that you could see where Almont was currently, and I felt that Richmond was the closest due to the student enrollment, a little bit more apples to apples, if you will, but with that said, the positions are not always the same. A lot of our districts, I'm sure you already know this, but they'll separate dean of students or assistant principal from, you know, an athletic director typically, or a lot of districts are moving away from combining that position because it's a really difficult, challenging one to sustain, which would be probably a later conversation. But I wanted to point out where there's some differences, and I believe they have like an athletic director, a facilities manager, safety officer, all combined. So it's not apples to apples, but I highlighted Richmond because I felt it was a little bit closer, and it's within our BLAC. So that's why I highlighted that, just to give you a little background, as they were closer to our student enrollment.
Is this document in the drive? Sorry, is this document in the drive?
Yes.
Okay.
Mrs. Smith, can I ask a question? When was the last time these individuals received a raise? And is it appropriate to ask what it was?
It's been typically every 2 years, depending on the, like, maybe Mr. Wade would help me with that, because this is my second year, so everything is it every year for the non-rep? It can't be, because of, I do know that I have a 2-year out there right now for athletic director and principal.
It varies between, the initial contract can't be more than 3, so it varies between 1 and 3.
1 and 3
depending on
years.
where they're at.
Yep.
Can I ask what the typical percentage is? Is it 10, is it 3, is it 2?
Definitely not 10. Again, those are special considerations because I feel like they came in, you know, at a lower salary rate. I would say the average, on average, is probably 3. That I see 3 to 5, depending on, you know, what school districts can do. Yep.
Any other discussion?
Mrs. Smith.
Mr. Ray?
I concur with Mr. Burns, and I concur with Mrs. Frederickson. We shouldn't penalize the ones that, anyone for to renew the contract. But we do have to have a discussion in terms of the timing, but also, and I've said it before, this is, as you go into negotiations, that comparable, my view, it would be good for, as you go in, the parties to go in, like, I'll use the AAA as a reference, to go and say, these are 10 comparable schools. Just because they're in our league doesn't mean that they're necessarily comparable in terms of funding and that stuff. And the district to go in and say, we have these 10 schools that would match student population, economic status, that type of stuff, and say, okay, these 5 are the ones that we agree on. That way we're talking apples to apples for these contracts. But again, to get them at this point, we do need an extra discussion, but I would agree more with Mr. Burns that to move forward with the amended motion for 5%. What I can say.
Well, first I have to address Sue's motion.
Correct. You have to do a vote on my motion.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
move forward.
Yeah, because there was a motion in support for Sue.
Correct.
So Ms. Brad's motion was to table the non-ROC contracts until our July, correct, I have that right? Motion in support for that. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Right, so that one, then we go back to the original motion, and you were saying you want to amend your original motion.
I will amend the original motion I move Board of Education approve the compensation package with the 5% at the eligible of the non-represented individuals as discussed. This is good.
Do you need to put anything in there about future discussion on it?
With future discussion for the remaining individuals at the next.
Support. We're gonna have to, we're gonna have to vote that down because some of them are not at 5%. So we have to make sure that.
Oh,
No, you're right, there's some.
So we have to make sure that this is correct.
can you re-amend that, Mr. Ray?
I move the Board of Education approve the compensation package of the non-represented individuals with the one, let's say this,
I don't know.
5%.
No larger than 5%.
no larger than 5%
Yeah, there you go.
for the selected individuals, and the remaining individuals to have more discussion at the next meeting, work session. Available.
Somebody's gonna support it.
Support.
Okay. You supporting?
Yep.
Good?
Good.
Okay. Mr. Burrell, you have all that?
Yeah, so we're gonna have to vote through 3 motions.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so we had Mr. Reed's motion on the floor. Can you please read that back just so everybody's clear?
I do not have the exact wording.
No. Okay.
I was trying to. It is recorded
I know.
live
All right.
action on,
Can someone
that's
chime
why we
in?
record these things. for the
I just want to
public.
make sure everybody's clear. Mr. Reed's motion was to approve the non-rep contracts no larger than 5% with addressing the other individuals at a later date. Correct?
Selected
And
individuals.
then Mr. Burns supported that. All in favor?
Gonna have
Oh,
discussion.
sorry, discussion. Any discussion? Sorry.
That's okay, Mrs. Smith.
Ms. Fred?
While I disagree with this, and especially because it's another item that our superintendent keeps bringing forward with surprises, I also believe in the consensus of this board, so I will agree with this board.
Any other discussion?
Mrs. Smith, if we vote on this now, does this lock us out from amending the contracts later? Does this close the contracts?
Say that again, sorry.
So I'm understanding these are contracts. if we vote on this now for 5%, are we closing the contracts and we have to reopen and revote for these 4 individuals? So I need to stop.
Well, I can follow up, Mr. Eckert with, just making sure legally we're proceeding correctly, is how I would say. I'd like to bring more right the discussion. So yes, and there is a clause in their contracts that we're able to increase the salary amount. So maybe that helps.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. We got that one, and then we have to go back to the original one, right, sir?
The one in the middle, that was at 5%. So it's the exact same wording, but at 5%.
Okay, so Mr. Wade made a motion to approve the non-RAP contract at 5%. You had supported that, and so, any discussion on this one? All in favor? All opposed? Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay. So that one did not pass, and then we have the original motion, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and the original motion was for the Board of Education to approve the compensation package of the non-representative individuals as discussed. Did you support that one? Okay. All right, any discussion on that one? All in favor?
Actually,
Oh, go ahead.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
I just want to make sure this is set up for the July work session as when we will be discussing this.
The additional
Yes.
4, yes, that is correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Okay.
No. Well, you can be.
But you can't, you want to amend your vote?
No, let me amend my vote, please.
Any opposed?
Nay.
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 And that motion,
Sorry about that.
No problem. I'll put it up there.
we're getting better at it, guys. We're
You're
getting
getting
better
really
at
good.
that. Okay.
Thank you, board, and I apologize for any of that confusion. I am so sorry, but I'm trying to advocate for the staff. That is my role as well. All right, moving on to policy, approval of superintendent's evaluation. The Board of Education must adopt evaluation of the superintendent. The Almont Board of Education utilizes the Michigan Association of School Boards, MASB, evaluation tool to assess the performance of the superintendent. This tool provides a research-based framework aligned with effective leadership standards and student achievement. By using this structured approach, the board ensures that the evaluation process is transparent, consistent, and aligned with district goals. Special recognition is extended to the board for allowing an MSB trained facilitator to guide the evaluation process. This decision reflects the board's commitment to conducting a fair, objective, and thorough assessment of the superintendent's performance. Their continued dedication to good governance and accountabilities is greatly appreciated. The Board of Education rated Mrs. Van Holtmeyer effective.
Mrs. Smith?
Mr. Rotarian?
I move the Board of Education adopt the completed year-end evaluation for Mrs. Von Hiltmeyer for 2024-2025. I'm going to do a roll call vote. Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Wait, we have to have
Oh.
a second, and
Yeah,
then discussion.
sorry.
You were just reading it all.
I know.
Wait. Okay, so you made a motion.
Support.
Mr. Burns supports the motion. Any discussion?
Mrs. Smith, I was just curious as to who asked Mr. Scott Morrell? Who asked him to attend? Is that something that we asked on our part? 'Cause
Mrs. Von
we have-
Hiltmeyer requested his
Oh,
presence,
okay.
and as superintendent, she has that, she has the ability to do that, she has the right to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mrs. Smith, I thought that was a really good thing to do. I think everybody handled the evaluation very well. And kind of shepherding us through it. This was really good.
Any other discussion? Mr. Burrow, would you do roll call vote, please?
Yes. Mr. Burns,
Aye.
Ms. Frederickson,
Aye.
Mr. Wade,
Aye.
Mr. Burrow, aye. Mr. Eckert, Ms. Rotarius,
Aye.
Ms. Smith.
Aye. questions and comments from the audience. If you would like to be recognized, please state your first and last name. And we have 3 minutes. Anybody like to be recognized at this time? Okay.
Well confused.
Questions and comments from Board of Education.
Mrs. Smith,
Mr. Burns.
I would just like to reiterate, the gratitude for Mrs. Von Hillman and Mrs. Merrifield, the effort and all the back and forth with the budget and everything. It's been a long month, I'm sure, at least, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay. Any future agenda items? I would like to say something about what you said, Mr. Wade, about the schools that we're comparing ourselves to. I think that, I don't really know if we should look at that in finance or policy, but I think it would be good to have an understanding of who we're always like, and we adjust it obviously as needed with growth and schools changing, but I think we need to have a set idea of who we're comparing ourselves to, I think previously we had compared ourselves a lot to Franken, with some educational components and stuff, so I think we should maybe look at some type of guidance, to how we want, so like when we ask Mrs. Vaughn, like, hey, what's the comparison? She knows we're looking for, A, B, C, and D schools, and that way it's a lot easier for you to do what we're asking you to do. So I would like to see that as a future agenda item. Any other future agenda items?
Just wanted to say something on that. We always work really hard at Almont schools to compare ourselves to Frankenmuth because Frankenmuth is a very excellent educational institution. The money that they have in their district, if you try to compare that to what we have, we are nowhere close. So again, I think it's dependent on what it is that we're looking at, that we have to make decisions on what it is that we're, who we want to be compared to.
I agree with you. I think there's a lot of variables, but there are some things when you're looking at size-wise, student growth and numbers and stuff. So there's a lot of variables, but I think it would be helpful from Ms. Bond if she knew what our directive is. So I think that would be helpful.
Thank you, yes, thank you. Yeah, that'd be great. I think in the past, I've been told, kind of stay locally,
Right.
BWAC. I think Frankenmuth was one, so it's interesting that Ms. Frederickson's bringing that one up. I feel like there's been comparisons with Frankenmuth before.
Yeah,
Maybe academically.
Academically.
I remember seeing like M-Stuff or, SAT scores that were compared with, but, so this is all kind of new comparing, but just trying to do a due diligence. I thought with Richmond's enrollment, I know that's been a huge one. I wanted to use them as a comparison.
Any other future agenda items? Mr. Burrow?
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
On your, are there schools that are easier for you to get information from?
Obviously, I think the BWAC is probably the
Right.
easiest because I have all the
Contacts.
soups on
Right.
my cell,
Right.
so probably that, but it doesn't mean that I can't reach out, or, as you know, if I need to FOIA information, I have the right to do that as well.
Right, okay. And then, in regards to the Chromebooks that you brought up, and I wrote another example one of these, can we just, I know it's a future agenda item already, but can we just make sure that we have that survey before we discuss Chromebooks?
Yeah, that would be part of it.
Okay.
I think the survey will then, enlist some of that feedback and discussion with the staff.
Okay,
So a lot of times that survey helps us, so for example, the end of the year PD one that I put out,
right.
when I bring it to the PD advisory committee, it's nice to see those results
Yeah.
and then bring it to the group. So kind of the same thing, get a staff survey together for the Chromebook
And-
survey, and then bring it as to the staffs to have more in-depth discussion.
Right, and we'll, even though the staff is out, we'll have that before Brandon presents at the next meeting.
Having, you mean the tech survey?
Yeah, the text, because I know
For
Brandon wants
Chromebooks,
to,
that won't happen until the teachers return in the fall.
the survey won't, but is he still gonna present on
He's coming to present to, more in a general sense as
Okay.
far as our technology needs for the
Okay.
district. both like short-term and long-term.
Okay,
I want you to be able to hear,
okay.
because as we know, technology is very expensive, and as we're trying to budget and plan, I think that's an important conversation to bring to the table.
The other thing I want to follow up with for a future agenda item, Mr. Wade and I think Mr. Burns brought this up on Monday night, just our infrastructure needs. I think we need to, in July, start, and obviously we're already working on the track, but with the higher fund balance that we may be looking at, I think we need to start looking at some of these things that we can take care of internally. And I would look to start doing that in July, like to have this list, investigate, start with our RFP process, and start working to get our district up to date. And that would be my hope.
Mrs. Smith.
Any other future agenda items?
Can I make a
Sure.
recommendation on yours, is maybe we could do a top 5 from the building principals, the director of maintenance, and the director of athletics, and director of transportation, to get like their top 5 needs each. And that way we can have like a earnest discussion, and anything that overlaps, it might let us know that a couple of things overlap in
I
what they're
agree.
seeing in the buildings.
Yeah, and within that top 5, what's failing within the year.
Right, and
2 years.
what costs $6 million and what costs up $50,000, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely, okay.
And then on a personal note, thank you all so much for the amount of time that you have spent on school board stuff. So I hope we have a couple of weeks off and enjoy it. Ms. Packard?
Could I add one more thing, kind of the same thing as the building, but for staff? Notice there's probably a couple holes in the district where we need more staff support somewhere. If we have a list of that, we can prioritize this.
Mrs. Smith,
Ms. Fred?
we should also be getting a copy of what the numbers are in each of the building in their classes. We can get that, we usually get that for all 3 buildings.
I think that'll be July, that you will start having.
The numbers, yeah, for like
The number of
school
students
choice,
that are in
yeah,
each of
we'll all be
the
solidifying.
Classes.
Yeah.
So
July.
we'll get that.
In July, yeah. Because we'll have school choice kind of solidified and registered, and we can look at those numbers.
Any other future agenda items? Okay.
Mrs. Smith,
Mr. Burrow?
I move the Board of Education end the Wednesday, June 25th special meeting at 7:08 p.m.
Support.
Motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?